Hello, it's Ms. Coletta here, and today I would like to look at how to compare data using scatterplots. So if you look here, the sample problem that we're going to be working on deals with the mini quiz scores for block 1 and block 2. And what we are going to do is we're going to use a scatterplot to compare the two data sets. And you need two data sets in order to use a scatterplot because one will go on the x-axis and one will go on the y-axis. So the first thing I'm going to do is construct my scatterplot. And I know I always need a title and labels, so I'll do that first. And I just have to pick what to put on the x-axis. And I always put whatever's in my first column as the label on the x-axis. So this is going to be block 1 scores. And then on the y-axis, I use my second column here, the block 2 scores. And then once we've labeled our axes, we'll also give this a title. So I'm just going to call this the mini quiz comparison. And we need to pay attention to our scale too. And if you look at my axes, I have 10 tick marks in either direction, and the mini quiz scores go from 1 to 10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little mark at the bottom of each and label them. And the same thing on the y-axis. Be a little squeeze in here with the labels. And then we're ready to actually plot our points. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scan through this list and I'm going to plot the points as XY pairs. So for example, this first pair here would be 9 and 8. So I would go to 9 for the block 1 score and then 8 for the block 2 score, and I'm going to put a point there. Now, what I want to be careful of is I want to make sure that there aren't any points that might overlap and be the same point, actually, that there'd be like duplicates or doubles of the point. So I'm looking down just to make sure there's no other pairs that are 9 and 8, and actually there is. There's one more pair that is 9 and 8. So the way that I'm going to show that there's actually 2 points there is right to the right of the dot. I'm going to put a little set of parentheses with a 2 in it, and that tells me that that particular point has actually 2 values there. And then to make sure that I'm keeping track of the ones that I'm using, I'm going to check off the 2 pairs that I've used so far. Then I'll go ahead through the rest of the list. So 10 and 9, I put a dot. And then I want to check and make sure that there's no other 10 and 9s. And there aren't. 8 and 7. And I just want to make sure there's no other 8 7s. Let's see, 8 8, 8 9, and there is actually one more 8 7. So again, to the right of that point, I want to put a little set of parentheses with a 2. Now 5 5. Oops. And then checking my list. No other 5 5, so I can move on. 7 and 4. Looks like I have 1, 2 that are 7 and 4. So I'll put my point, and then I'll put the 2 to remind myself that that's a duplicate. And again, if there were 3 or 4 of those, then we just put a 3 or a 4 instead, but here I only had 2. 9 and 6. That's the only 9 6 pair. So I go to 9 and up 6 and just put 1 dot. Since there's no duplicates, I don't have to write anything else. 8 and 8. And that's the only 8 8 pair. 8 and 9. And that's the only 8-9 pair. Six comma 7. Nine comma 5. Now we're getting into ones that don't seem to have as many duplicates. 10, 10. Right up here in the top right. 6, 10, and 4, 8. And at this point, I am done plotting my points. So what I want to do now is I want to somehow compare this scatter plot. And the way that I do that is by using the line y equals x. Now the line y equals x would tell me all the places where the scores were the same. For instance, if both students that are being compared from block 1 and block 2 got 10s, or both got 5s, or both got 8s, or whatever. So we always draw the line y equals x through the points where x and y are the same value. And the way I draw this line is I just go down and I say, okay, well, if x was 0, y would have to be also 0. So I put a dot at 0, 0. And then if x was 1, y would also have to be 1. So I put a dot at 1, 1. And then from there, it's very easy for us to just connect those two dots to draw the line y equals x. Now notice that it would go through all the other points where x and y are the same. 2, 2, 3, 3, and so on. Okay. And I'm just going to fix my line. It's a little hard to get it to work out perfectly on the iPad. There we go. Alright, so now we are ready to answer the questions that actually help us compare the data set. So step 1 was plot the points. Step 2 was draw the line y equals x. And I'll actually go ahead and label this here, y equals x. And then we're going to answer the questions. So the first question is, how many points fall above the line y equals x? So I'm literally just going to count above the line. So I have 1, 2, 3, only 4 points above the line y equals x. And it's important to discuss, I don't have room to write here, but to discuss what that means. And if you look here, if we are above the line y equals x, that means that I went higher up for block 2 than I did for block 1, because y equals x is where they're equal to each other. So if I'm up top here, then block 2 has a higher score. So that would be 4 students that scored higher on their mini quiz than the person from block 1 that they were paired with. Now below the line y equals x, I have a little bit more to count. So here I see 2. I have to count that as 2 because it has duplicates. So 2, 3, 4, then 2 more is 5, 6, 2 more is 7, 8, and then we have this last one right here, 9. So we actually have 9 that fall below the line y equals x. And that would represent the students that scored lower in block 2 because it's below the line y equals x. So block 2 got a lower score than block 1. So there's 9 students there where they got a lower score than their partner in block 1. And then on the line y equals x, our final thing to count, I just trace along the line and see how many points are actually on the line. 1, 2, 3. None of those were duplicates, so a nice easy answer of just 3 points. And that represents 3 students, or 3 pairs of students where they ended up with the same score in block 1 as their pair or partner in block 2. Okay, so that's pretty much how we use scatter plots to compare data sets. I hope this helped.